A very good morning and welcome back to another daily market outlook. EURUSD sold off in towards the downside and the dollar index pushed up higher as we wanted, because this has now caused GBPUSD, our top pick of this month, to again further sell off in towards the downside within the overall impulsive phase. Now, before I dive into that, check out these results. I passed the $400,000 challenge thanks to those overall setups which I've been discussing for quite some time, obviously with GBPUSD sells being my main one. But also definitely USDJPY and NZDUSD. So NZDUSD sells and USDJPY buys after that 4-hour fractal break in towards the upside on UJ and in towards the downside on NU. So I'll discuss those setups in today's video as well. Now, starting off here on EURUSD, we can see that EURUSD sold off further in towards the downside. This is pretty much in line with what we were anticipating. Obviously, I said, Fabio, or guys, we can look for a long from either one of these demand zones. But inside of the demand zone itself, you need to look for the confirmation. And furthermore, I also had an underbelly feeling that the dollar index was going to push up higher. Well, as we can see, that is pretty much right, because EURUSD has been selling off in towards the downside. Now, inside of this area of demand over here, we had obviously this bump in the road right above it. Now, as I said, guys, there was no confirmation at all. We were going to need to take out this low and then, for example, see the 1-hour fractal shift before looking for a long. So if you took a loss there on your USD within that demand zone, really kind of like reevaluate the trade itself, because there was just no trade there. Then obviously we sold off again in towards this lower area of demand. So then what we want to see within that lower area of demand, we want to see a fractal shift. Well, again, yesterday, no fractal shift, because you come in towards that area of demand with a lot of momentum. And before you can ever look for a long within that demand zone, you need to see the fractal structure shift and you need to receive that bullish confirmation in order to look for long. So we can see that now only this morning has a 1-hour fractal structure shift being provided. But personally, I'm not looking to long EURUSD at this level. And there's a reason for that, because I have dollar index as kind of like my confirmation. Now, EURUSD has not yet given a 4-hour candle close, so this could just be a liquidity swipe fueling a short-term drive in towards the upside, or maybe even a longer-term drive in towards the upside. But for EURUSD, I will only look for longs once the current fractal high were, for example, to break. Or what I'll do is based on the daily, let me quickly check. Or no, let's do this. So what I'll do is I'm going to now focus on this here as my daily fractal structure, so as my daily area of supply. So what we can see is that the overall fractal structure broke here as we broke this previous low. So that then means that the current fractal high is here, current fractal low is here, and that my next liquidity target is down over here. So what I'm going to be looking for is that if EURUSD retraces in towards that supply zone, I'll be looking for a short back down in towards that blue dotted line. Now, the confirmation that I then need pretty much to look for that short is preferably taking out this high here, as this is, let's say, the impulse down, take out that high, and then get a 4-hour change of character to then look for a short in towards the downside after taking out that high. That, for me, is pretty much going to be the setup that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on for the rest of this week, or moving in towards next week. I was looking at potentially seeing if we could take a long after we would break the supply zone, but I'm just really not a big fan of the dollar index, because the dollar index in itself is, for me, just too bullish. Now, we can clearly see here that after taking out that second low, we were anticipating that we could see a further drive up. Now, what has happened is that the daily fractal structure has now shifted here. So we've now seen a daily fractal break. And now what I'm just looking for is for price to continue in towards this high over here and this high over here. So what we need is pretty much just either a retest of the overall sell for the buy, and then we'll look for long. So any kind of like downside push here on the dollar is just another opportunity to look for a buy. Personally, I don't see kind of like anything here really gonna, nothing here is really going to be able to cause like a full-blown reversal in towards the downside on the dollar from my perspective. Also, I really want to see the overall highs here get taken in the near future, so that's why I'm looking for some more upside here on the dollar, and at least into 99.074 next. Now, with that bias, we can then obviously look at trades such as GBPUSD, which has been playing out to absolute perfection. We've been calling this for so long, and so happy to see this happening. It's so impulsive that for some it might be a little bit hard, obviously, to enter, but we can see that we're still within the overall impulsive phase. Now, what has happened is that we've taken out a massive liquidity low, which is the low here of the 3rd of September. So this low over here, I'm not sure again what news announcement was exactly on the 3rd of September, but we've now taken out that low. This low can cause an overall kind of like short-term reaction preferably and ideally on GU, what you want to see now is this bump in the road get liquidated. So you want to see a liquidation happen, and then we want to see the bearish change of character, and then we would have a very high probability short in towards the downside, and then we can pass some challenges again. So some good price action overall. Obviously the best setup has been from all the way at the top here, and that is also the setup that I took here on GBPUSD. You can see here 136.497, and if we go back here, you can see that that is around these prices over here on literally kind of like the top of the retest of this supply zone in towards the downside. So overall, just a fantastic trade. This is then obviously the trade that you want to be inside of, and then as you can see, simply trading the 4-hour fractal structure at 1 to 3 back down in towards that liquidity low. Just too beautiful. Now again, I'm just looking for price to recharge and to give us another setup to look for a further short position again in towards the downside, and ideally we would see a short-term push up before then the next push in towards the downside. So some more GU sells once price recharges, that would be fantastic. Then going into AUDUSD, we can see that AU has continued down lower. I was taking into account that we could potentially see somewhat of a further push up, but then again, we've now retraced into discount pricing. So this is more interesting levels to look at for potential buying opportunities. But I must say that AUDUSD for me is a little bit more unclear. But what you now would want to see, because obviously we've had an impulsive phase in towards the highs, we're currently trading well within the overall pullback phase. You want to see some lower time frame confirmation, so that would be on the 4-hour time frame. So we're now looking at the 4-hour time frame. What is then the confirmation that we would require? Well, preferably we would take out some more lows. I don't really see anything too clear that for me really aligns with what I would like. So what I'll just do is I'll just stick to really waiting for a little bit more confirmation, in the sense that I'll just wait for a full-blown structural reversal, so a break of the structure after that we've been inside discount, and then I'll look, for example, for another high break in towards the highs, and then around that second high break, that is then when I'll be looking for a long opportunity. So first of all, I want to break this area of supply here, then I want to retest the demand that is then created, and I want to validate demand by seeing another high break in towards the highs. Until then, I'm not really engaging with AU. I don't really see any shorts, but I also don't really see the longs just yet. Now, moving on into NZDUSD. So NZDUSD, that is one of my pearls and one of the best setups that I've seen in a long time. I've been calling this literally the whole impulsive phase down. Obviously, there were not a lot of setups to take, but yeah, the best setup was from the overall high itself, where we took out these two descending highs here, and obviously we never saw a candle close above the descending highs. Meaning that the market structure always remained bearish, and especially then after seeing the 4-hour fractal structure shifting towards the downside, for me, then it was just clear, okay, the impulsive phase has started, and well, we can see we've made it all the way back down towards the range low, because if you view this as a range, then we took the range high, and then obviously we expect the range low to get taken. Now, there's still a lot of momentum in towards the downside, so I mean, if you want to trade NU, then you just need to wait for it to recharge. As for now, there's not really anything there. We would need for it to reaccumulate before we can look for a new trade. But obviously I'm favoring some shorts, but GU or, for example, EU would be a better expression of that short, in my opinion. Then we have USDJPY. Now USDJPY has taken out the high by a mile or so. You can see here that it's breaking out of the range, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more price action in towards further higher prices. Now, that range has been there for so long, and obviously this overall 4-hour setup which I've had on my chart for a long time now, played out beautifully. Now, what you would want to see here on UJ is just a liquidation event. So you kind of like want to see maybe a break up, then a breakdown, taking out a low, and then again the next push in towards the high. So how that would look like is, for example, like this. It didn't happen here, but it would look like this, where you then push up, and then you would see a liquidation of the low, and then another fractal break, and then that is then the long that you want to take. So I'm kind of looking for that on UJ to happen. For the rest, look out for the upside. The Japanese yen index is so weak. So yeah, I would just look to continue on that momentum. Looking at USDCHF, also nice. I told you guys I don't want to short until we've taken out this liquidity high here. Now again, the liquidity high has been taken, so the only short expression that you could take now is if the fractal low here breaks, and then we can look for shorts. Otherwise, for now, bulls are in control, so it doesn't make sense to look for a short. as the immediate market structure for now is still bullish. So wait for the fractal on the 4-hour to shift before looking for any shorts. And then USDCAD and gold. So USDCAD in itself has continued to push up higher out of the range, similar to USDJPY. Now again, guys, when I say, hey, when we take out, for example, this high and we're trading at the 75% region, you can look for a short, then don't just sell, because I get sometimes messages from people, but we're at 75%, or we take the high that you said, and then we can look for a short. Guys, I always say we need to wait for fractal confirmation in order to look for a sell. So what you would need to see is indeed then another high break like happened over here, and then, for example, fractal low break, and then you could look for a sell. Otherwise, there's just simply not a sell. So now we've broken out, and for me it seems that this bump in the road here would be next. And then once that bump in the road gets taken out, we could start looking for a pullback. So I hope that USDCAD just stays impulsive in towards that high. Then this here is a demand zone, and then we could look for a pullback trade after taking out that 140 level. And then we could go to the 4-hour time frame. And then if we, for example, see a 4-hour change of character there, then we could look for a sell, because now we're trading after kind of like a break of structure in towards the upside. So let's say you would view this here as the break of structure. So we're trading after the break of structure. So what do you expect after break of structure? Well, you expect a pullback. When do you expect a pullback? When you get a change of character and when we take out major liquidity. So I'm just waiting for major liquidity to get taken, and then we can look for a pullback trade. And last of all, we have gold. Now, gold in itself has, again, just continued to pretty much just move up, but it's also very consolidated at the moment. Now, for gold, you just want to look for new buys, in my personal opinion, but it's squeezing at the moment. And if I'm very honest, I'm not really trading gold at the moment, but I would just prefer for it to kind of like give us one more aggressive sell-off, take out some low, and then, for example, look for some fractal confirmation again. I wouldn't want to be looking for longs inside of here, so just wait for a liquidation and then wait for kind of like a V-shaped reversal, change of character, and then we can look for longs again. But inside here, you don't really want to be trading anything. That's my personal opinion. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Wish you all a fantastic trading day. Any questions, join Discord. I'm there. Just tag me. And yeah, thanks. Have a good day. And I'll enjoy my weekend here in Italy. And make sure to keep an eye on the Instagram for some more Italy content. Thanks, guys.